I'm excited for tonight. I'm a little nervous for tonight because I don't know that much. I really know nothing about Enron. My lovely assistant made these slides, which we will discuss in a moment. Quick updates, chat. Quick updates. How are we feeling? How are we doing? I'm drinking a vodka Sprite. How's everyone else doing? Would love to see some attention in the chat. Hi, Barbie. Hi. My microphone woes are still not over, if you would believe it. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. That is what I'm talking about. You went apartment hunting today? Let's get straight into it, actually. I'm just in like a go, go, go mode, and I'm ready to get straight into it. So, rip the mic. The microphone is actually fine. It's the stand that's having a problem. Like, literally, I'll show you. The microphone is fine. It's everyone else that can't get their life together. So, like, worst case scenario, I would just hold it like this, which is fine, I guess, but it's kind of heavy, and I don't want to drop it. And I talk with my hands. You wouldn't hear me, you know? The new stand I got for it works. I just misunderstood the directions. So it said 6-inch microphone stand. So naturally, I thought it was 6 inches tall. No, it's 6 inches wide. It's 11 inches tall. So the stand is perfectly fine. It's just not what I need because my microphone would literally be like right here. And that's just not what we need. So I'm returning it tomorrow and I'm going to get one that is actually 6 inches tall, not 6 inches wide. First time on your stream, but follower for a while. Welcome, Dancing Lays. So, what a sick logo, but how did anyone see this and think this company was trustworthy? So, if you do not know, we're doing a little experiment this week. My assistant made this, and I know very little about Enron. I listened to one podcast one time a couple months ago about Enron, and I was like, oh, I should do a stream about that. But then I just kind of like never sat down to do it because every time I would try and Google it, it was just so many business words, and I was like, oh my god, I cannot handle that. Like, I literally cannot handle it. So I was like, I should have my assistant make it, and then I can learn it with you guys, and if it's boring, we can just kind of chit chat and hang out. And if it's interesting, it'll be a fun surprise for all of us. I do think it's going to be interesting because multiple people went to prison. So that just like surface level is screaming interesting to me. But if there's things in here that you feel like should have been included or I didn't know something, I'm sorry. I'm letting you know this is the vibes this week. This is what we're doing. Let me know if you guys are into this idea. If you don't like this idea, I am pretty open. So if we like this, I'm happy to keep doing it. Also want to shout out my lovely designer. She's great at implementing feedback. I love working with people that can implement feedback. That is such an important skill that's not taught, clearly. But anyway, my great designer, I mentioned to her that you guys wanted a bigger screen, so your screen is much, much bigger. I think it was the You're Wrong About. I think that's what I listened to about Enron, and it was really good, and that's why I decided to use it. So yeah, shout out to my lovely designer. Also, I love the new little logo she made with the apple in it. I think that it literally is so good. So good. No, because why do I have to watch the whole 30-second ad? Ugh, so lame. 12-year-old me is excited to learn what was going on cable news those many years ago. That's what I was thinking is I was like, I know what Enron is because people always say Enron. Like, I know it was a big company that fucked up, but I don't actually know what happened. So that's why I picked it for the stream because I was like, I feel like most people, I'm 26, most people around my age, and I feel like people, unless you were an adult when Enron happened, you've heard of it, but you don't really know it. So I guess anyone that's under the age of, let's say 40, you probably don't know the nitty gritty and the details of this. So let's go ahead and get into it. I know some of you like to have the code, so there's the code. I'll put it in the chat if anyone wants it to, because you can see the slides on your screen and stuff. So what happened in 2001 is when this scam happened, or the falling of grace happened. No, it's not corporate military contracts. They did a fucking ton of things. So Enron Corporation was, okay, so let me give if you have never heard of this ever. Basically what I know is there's a company called Enron, and they were doing a lot of sketchy accounting to hide a lot of shit. and then it all came out, and this massive company just like disappeared overnight, basically. Like the company just came fucking crashing down. And when I say massive company, think like if Microsoft just like was done. Like crazy. So Enron was an American energy commodities and services company. Energy is like oil, shit like that. Commodities, I don't know what the fuck that means. Services, it's one of these companies that owns tons of everything. Like they work in like trading of commodities. There's a definition of commodities. Let me look it up. See what I mean? We're learning this together. And commodities are raw inputs used in the production of goods. So like coal, corn, sugar, gold, like literally our natural resources. It was founded by Kenneth Lay in 1985 as a merger between Lay's Houston Natural Gas and Internorth, which were both relatively small regional companies. Any relation to Lay's chips? I hope not. This is Kenneth Lay. He looks exactly like I would expect him to. Like if you sat me with a police sketch artist, again, you're getting a raw reaction. I have not looked at these. If you sat me with a police sketch artist, this is who I would describe, even if I had never seen him in my life. I love Sprite. Can I just say, I love a vodka Sprite, and I hate how when you're at a bar and you say, can I get a vodka Sprite? They give you a vodka soda. Because when did I say that? Anyway, Internorth. Internorth was founded in 1930 in Omaha, Nebraska, and was the key predecessor to Enron. The company grew rapidly during the Great Depression due to low natural gas costs and cheap labor. There's nothing like human oppression to really make a company soar. That's one thing we know historically. Over 50 years later, Internorth expanded by acquiring various energy companies. They bought out smaller companies. In 1979, it became a holding company with Northern Natural Gas as its main subsidiary. A holding company is like a company that has a million companies. It's holding the other companies. Again, I'm not a business major, so if this is wrong, I'm sorry, but I think I'm right. It feels right saying it. This is actually what I sound like teaching my students. That's horrifying to think about. Anyway. They operated the largest pipeline in North America, so that's great for their karma. Internorth faced challenges, including an unsuccessful hostile takeover of Course Hines Company. What the fuck is a hostile takeover? It sounds like, what was it? Like, it sounds like if a company could be kidnapped. Hostile takeover. That is when a company or individual attempts to take control of a company without the consent of the company. How the fuck do you do that? Literally, how do you... It's like rape, but for a company. Imagine you're just working, and they're like, we own you now. They buy up the majority of the shares. Oh my God. That's so scary. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It does sound like secession. A hostile takeover is the acquisition of one organization by another. Hostile takeover takes place by approaching a company's shareholders directly. Okay, so you can like go to, got it. Or fighting to substitute the management and getting the acquisition approved. In a hostile takeover, the target company's management does not wish the takeover to go through. So it's the management that doesn't want it, but the owners do want it. That makes sense. I was like, if the owner doesn't want it, I don't think you can do that. So anyway, yeah, a hostile takeover. I can imagine that... A hostile takeover is not great for company culture. I can imagine that probably does have a negative impact on employee retention. By the 1980s, Internorth was a significant player in natural gas production, transmission, marketing, and plastics. These people are like, they're the reason it's hot as fuck. They're the reason the weather's fucked up. Is these people in the 70s and 80s. I just want everyone to know that right now. That, like, when you're outside and you're sweating and thinking about global warming, blame these people. Because, like, could you be in a more evil industry than natural gas production, transmission, marketing? Marketing is one of the most evil industries in the world. And plastics. Plastics. Did you guys know that BPA, which is like the main ingredient in most plastics, it's illegal to be in baby stuff now, but it used to be in everything. BPA was originally supposed to be birth control, but it wasn't strong enough to be birth control. And then they realized when they melted it, it made really good plastic. That's like a SparkNotes version of that story. That does not include every research detail. But yeah. Google endocrine disruptors. and it'll ruin the rest of your life. And every time you touch a receipt, you'll be scared. So speaking of things to be scared of, Houston Natural Gas. So Houston Natural Gas was founded in 1925 from the Houston Oil Company, which was established to supply gas to the Houston market through pipelines. Birth control, how? Like the ingredients in it, they were going to try and use in the pill. I don't know, like, they changed the form of it and stuff, but, like, the chemical compounds that create BPA, again, I'm not a scientist, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I learned this from a documentary, so if it's wrong, I'm sorry. But, yeah. Tea. Because that was in, like, the 50s, so that's before we had any of the modern stuff. And then plastic became really popular in, like, the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So, anyway. Under CEO Robert Herring, H&G thrived in the unregulated Texas gas market. I love a good weekend in the unregulated Texas gas market, benefiting from a 1970s commodity surge. Shit got more expensive, I guess. However, by the late 1970s, rising gas prices and the Natural Gas Policy Act of 1978 reduced profitability. Oh no! Oh no! We're not as rich as we were before. The Natural Gas Policy Act. Why do I feel like that was probably a good law and it's probably been repealed? Just like knowing how things usually go. I'm mad about it now. So this caused H&G's profits to decline. So they had to commit fraud, you guys. Have some empathy. After Herring's death in 1981, you dead! MD Matthews briefly led the company but faced significant earnings drops. In 1984, Kenneth Lay became CEO, taking over the struggling conglomerate. This is why I had to quit corporate America, because when you say something like we had significant earnings drops, I'm going to laugh in your face because that's not real. We made that up. Do you mean the number on your little E-Trade screen is going to change? And then we'll all wake up the next day, the sun will rise, and we will continue. Like, that's not, it's fine. It's fine. Like, I cannot get stressed out about that. Like, when they're like, oh my God, the shareholder value, and people, like, genuinely have an emotion. I'm like, there's literally children dying. Children die from violence every day. And the thing that you're choosing to be upset about is the shareholder value. Who are the shareholders? I don't care. I don't care. Who are the shareholders? I don't know. And I don't care. Who cares? Speaking of terrible segue, I just want to call out this is a terrible segue. But since I was talking about things to actually be upset about, Dr. Sufyan's fundraiser is still in my page. I've been struggling to post about it on TikTok because I keep getting like my videos blocked for it. So I've been talking about it more on here and more on Instagram. I greatly appreciate everyone that's already donated. Please continue to donate. That link is always down there. It's also in my link tree. If you can't do GoFundMe, he can take PayPal. That is also in my link tree. And I have like double, triple, quadruple verified all this money is going where it's supposed to be. He sent me screenshots of bank transfers. He sent me pictures of him holding the cash, getting it to the people, all the things. So back to Kenneth Lay becoming the CEO of Houston Natural Gas, the struggling conglomerate. And that's what I mean. Like, oh, a conglomerate is struggling? What are we going to do? Like, bro, who the fuck cares? Look at our infrastructure. And you think I care about a conglomerate? Is the conglomerate going to fix our roads and bridges? No? Okay, don't care. So, the merge. Due to its steady success, Internorth became a target for corporate takeovers. What is happening in corporate America? Are you guys okay? Are you guys okay? Like, it's not tag. You don't, like, what do you mean? Oh, we're a target for takeovers. We're really good, so people keep hostilely taking us over. Like, stand up for yourself. How does that keep happening to you? What do you mean? What? I dream of community building around each other's needs. We're not okay. Y'all are making this up. Y'all are literally, you know that story where it's like they tie the baby elephant to a post, and when the elephant gets big, it doesn't realize it's way stronger than the post and it could just walk away. It thinks that it's still stuck there even though it's not. That's y'all with corporate America. Corporate America's the post and you can walk away at any moment. Like, I just need you to know that. that you don't have to be doing this. You don't have to be accepting these lies and this false reality. So due to its steady success, they became a target for corporate takeovers with Irwin Jacobs, a guy who handled mergers. Basically, he goes in and buys failing companies, breaking them off and selling their assets off for profit. What an evil job. You don't want to, I literally think picking up trash on the side of the road is more noble and important than what Irwin Jacobs is doing. There's no reason for Irwin Jacobs' job to exist, but there is a reason for people to pick up trash. You don't have any creativity. This tells me you have no personality and you have no passion. You couldn't find a job that you actually liked, so that's your job? Oh God. Get up off the floor. In response, Internorth CEO Sam Segner, that feels like a slur, I don't want to say that, pursued a friendly merger with Houston Natural Gas. I'm so sorry. The hostile merger, I'm never going to understand. In May 1985, Internorth acquired HNG for $2.3 billion, a price 40% above its market value. Y'all are terrible shoppers. On July 16th, 1985, both companies voted to merge. The merger resulted in the creation of the second largest gas pipeline system in the U.S., with Internorth's north-south pipelines serving Iowa and Minnesota, and HNG's east-west pipelines extending to Florida and California. So they were really in that bitch. Do we have a video soon? I hope we have a video soon, because I'm illiterate. Pause. So the birth of Enron. Initially named HNG/Internorth, with Internorth as the parent company, Sam Segner was the initial CEO, but then he was replaced by Kenneth Lay, who we've met before. Lay moved the headquarters back to Houston and initiated the search for a new company name. He spent $100,000 on focus groups, and Enron was proposed, but rejected due to the unfortunate medical connotation. What does that mean? What is the medical connotation? Oh, the medical connotation. I fucking love my assistant. A tube-like passage that food travels through during digestion, extending from the mouth to the anus, i.e. the digestive tract. Maybe you can only use it for embryos, but I can't kind of tell. Can't tell. Interesting. Gross. Gross. So it's like a medical device that you use for a digestive tract? That's a lot. Anyway, the name Enron was introduced and approved by the stockholder vote. We gotta ask the stockholders, you guys. That's the most important person, is the stockholders. It does sound like a sex joke. That's the thing. $100,000 in focus groups, and they could tell you it's this niche medical term, but they can't tell you it just sounds like a sex joke. Enron. I want to start laughing. Put me in the focus group. Why does no one ask me to be in focus groups? So, addressing the merger challenges. Enron had to pay Irwin Jacobs over $350 million to neutralize his threat. Honestly, maybe I was wrong about Irwin Jacobs. Maybe he's actually a genius, because to get paid $350 million to fuck off is hilarious. Kenneth Lay sold off parts of the company that didn't align with their long-term vision. What's the vision? No one's told me what the vision is. The only vision I've seen is to make money. And if that's your only vision, that's fine. Just tell me. They consolidated gas pipeline operations under the Enron Gas Pipeline Operating Company. They ramped up efforts in electric power and natural gas, adding power plants and congregation units in the 80s. Jeff Skilling introduced the gas bank concept, which transformed natural gas into a commodity, leading him to join Enron in 1991. They expanded overseas with $56 million loan in 1989 for a power plant in Argentina. This is one thing that I think is going to come up a couple times, is them spending very large amounts of money. Like we saw, they purchased the company for like $1 gazillion, $2.3 billion. They're not afraid to spend. Oops. This is Jeff Skilling. All of them look exactly like I would expect. Is that peas on his tie? Can someone confirm or deny if that's peas on his tie? All day, I'm constantly trying to satisfy the stakeholders. It feels like a good thing. It feels good to think of the shareholders for a change. Real. If I'm understanding correctly, Enron just means digestive system. Oh, maybe we're all dumb. I don't know. Whatever. None of us knew, but it does sound like a sex joke. So the gas bank. The gas bank was a process where Enron would buy gas from a network of suppliers and sell it to a network of consumers. This is just an MLM. How come when LuLaRoe does it, it's a problem? They would contractually guarantee both supply and the price, charging fees for the transaction and assuming the associated risk. You mean the risk of making money? Feels like a good thing for you to assume. This would later be known as an energy derivative. My assistant did so good on this. The way when it like starts to get boring, she backs off. Like she knew I couldn't handle it. Anyway, hey girlie, would you like to take a moderate interest gas loan at our Boss Babe Gas Bank? When Jeff pitched the idea to Rich Kinder, all of these names sound the same to me. All these people are the same in my mind. They're like the Kens in the Barbie movie. They're all the same. I don't know. The buyers loved it, no shit, because they could obtain a predictable price for gas, but gas producers were reluctant to buy in. Gas was very cheap and producers believed the price would rise. Why would they sell cheaper gas today instead of waiting for tomorrow when they'd get a better price? Confronted with the seemingly intractable problem, Jeff had another brainstorm. He would buy the gas on the spot market. The idea was good, but it needed some refinement, so Jeff did something brilliant. That's how you know this is from a business article. None of us would say this is brilliant. He realized that Enron did not have to deliver gas to its customers. They could guarantee the price of gas and allow someone else to deliver it. So you're literally doing nothing. You were already doing nothing, and now you're doing even more nothing. You're like, we're just going to tell you what the price is, and that's how we make money. And then someone else makes it, someone else delivers it, and someone else handles it. But we are setting the price and making the money. Like, how is that? And we're not even to the fraud part yet. We're literally not even to the fraud part yet. So, if the gas price rose, Enron would buy the expensive gas. The client would sell it at a higher price. If the price dived, the client would pay Enron the difference. Enron would be guaranteeing the price of gas, but not delivering the gas. Are you an energy company or are you a bank? How do I make that my job? This is natural gas, I think. Yeah, because the other company was a natural gas. I think it is. Just tell people what price things are. Like, this is not a real job. How have these people convinced us that they should be running society? He also got money as a loan into the hands of oil drillers. So he set up the Enron Finance Corporation to handle the credit request. Many years later at trial, Jeff would describe this time in the Texas economy as a desolate area with shotgun buildings, empty buildings you could shoot through and not hit anything. So he's like, you guys don't get it. I had to commit loan fraud because they were poor. The area had nothing. It would have been silly for me to not commit loan fraud. It had to be done. So, key developments. Okay, good. There's a video soon. I want to drink my drink. I couldn't handle this. There's so much business. And they all just sound so delusional. So, the FERC, what's that? Federal Energy Regulation something? Federal Energy Regulatory Committee. I was pretty close. They ordered in 1985 to 88 to deregulate the national gas market. That's perfect. As a regulatory agency, you should definitely deregulate it. I think that's exactly what you wanted. So they created a market pricing system which increased volatility. So the prices are going up and down. They're very volatile. And Enron's making money off all of these. Yeah, Reagan times for sure. It gave over 75% of gas sales were now conducted through that spot market. So, other mergers and leadership. July 1984, Houston Natural Gas, led by Kenneth Lay, merges into Internorth, which forms that 37,000-mile interstate natural gas pipeline network. Kenneth Lay becomes CEO. We kind of talked about this. They moved to Houston. So, 1987, they concealed up to $190 million of losses. So, they basically just shut that down. We'll get more into this later. And then in 1988, Enron shifts focus to unregulated markets and enters the UK energy market with Testside Power Station. So the 2001 fraud is not their first fraud. I want to look this up. That was in 1987. And why did we keep letting them do fraud after that? I shouldn't have Googled that whole thing. Enron fraud 1987. Okay, so in April 1987, Enron discovered that 2 oil traders in the New York office were involved in unethical activity. So just they got in trouble and they fired them. But that's crazy, like canary in a coal mine vibes. So, 1989, Enron launches that gas bank that we talked about. That seems like a total scam. And then 1990, Enron expands globally and becomes a natural gas market maker, trading futures and options. Jeff Skilling and Andrew Fastow join Enron and are playing key roles in its growth. Again, the Jeff Skilling guy is the gas bank guy who somehow is making money off nothing. So, January 1987, this is what I was just talking about. Enron discovers that their people in their New York office have been diverting company funds into their personal accounts. So that was fraud, but is it bad that I think that's not as bad? Like, I think if you're stealing from the company, I get that. Like, you want money and they have it, so you took it. I understand that. But when people commit fraud and it's for the company and not themselves, I'm like, you're really going to get caught up for these fuckers? Like, you're really going to get caught up for the shareholders? Like, if you're going to get caught up to steal millions of dollars for yourself, I get that. I can clearly see where your head's at. I wouldn't do it, but I get it. But to be like, the shareholders. Okay. April 1987, the board, including Ken Lay, learns about these people, the men in charge of the Valhalla operation, were gambling beyond their limits, destroying reports, and keeping 2 sets of books and manipulating accounting in order to give the appearance that they had steady profits. The board does not fire them because Lay makes it clear they're making too much money to let them go. They're lying about how much money they're making. They're literally lying. They literally cooked the books to have it show that they're profitable. Did you even check to see if they were? At work, I frequently say yes, but what about the shareholder value? I hope you guys are joking with me and I'm not just making fun of you, because I hope you mean that as a joke. And I hope that people don't realize you mean it as a joke and it's a joke just like for yourself. I used to have a lot of those when I worked in corporate America. But that's why I had to end up quitting, because that's why I started going crazy. Because I started joking around to just make myself feel better. And I would say stuff like that. I'd be like, guys, the shareholder value. And then it made me go crazy because I expected people to laugh and be in on the joke. But then they thought I was serious and I started getting a lot of praise for it. And they were like, you're always thinking about that. It's so great. And I literally just started to go crazy because I felt like I was living a life where no one actually knew me. And I would just say these things and people thought I was meaning it with them. And I was like, I don't mean it with you guys. I'm trying to think of an example of something I said. The shareholder value was a common one. I would always say, but how is this going to maximize commissions? We would be talking about ordering snacks for the break room and I would be like, how is this going to maximize commissions? And they would be like, you're right, because when people bring clients in, we'll have better snacks and they'll be more likely to close. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I literally just started to go crazy. I would stare at the camera. I would be like, but then there was nothing over there. Stop taking comedy seriously in the workplace. So, Borget and Mastroianni, I don't mean to be discriminatory against the Sopranos community, but those are Sopranos names. That Tony Soprano knows them. It's the 80s in New York. He knew them. They ended up on wrong sides of a massive trade and threatened to bankrupt the company. Enron executive Mike McElroy, these are fake-ass names. These are literally fake-ass names. Mike McElroy manages to bluff the market. What does that mean? What does it mean to bluff the market? I need to Google this. Should I know these things? Because I don't. Bluff the market. Meaning. I can't find it. Okay, I guess just like trick the market is what they mean. To reduce the loss from 1 billion to 140 million, which saves the company. That's like, we saved the company. What are you talking about? Little lie to Wall Street. It means lying. No, literally, like, I'm like, they're like, oh, well, he lied and we saved it. But I'm like, you don't have that money. You do not have that money. Isn't Mr. Redacted a finance guy? Yes, I asked him if he wanted to come, but he does not like being on camera. So he said we could have so much fun and he will be watching from afar. But like, where they're like, oh, we lost all the money. It's okay now. No, it's not. The money is still gone. Like, you are going to have to face this eventually. So, 1987, Kenneth Lay professes shock at the actions of the traders. They are fired. 3 years later, they plead guilty to a number of felonies. Bourget spends 1 year in jail. Masteronini, whatever his name is, receives a suspended sentence. Again, this is still before the big fraud. So this is someone talking about this scandal.
In 1987, 2 oil traders made bets for Enron on whether the price of oil would rise or fall. Oil trading is like gambling. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
This is the epitome of like what's trashy if you're poor but classy if you're rich. Like lotto scratchers are trashy, but oil price game. You're lying. This is a joke. Oh, I'm never taking a job serious. You are lying. Hey, I know you committed fraud, accounting fraud, but you made it look like you made millions of dollars, so keep it up. Maybe pick up a shovel and work, Ken. Maybe that. And then October 19th, 1987, Black Monday, the Dow Jones plummets 508 points, dropping 20%. It's the greatest single-day loss in Wall Street history. I didn't know about that. And then in 1989, Enron begins trading natural gas commodities. The company will become the largest natural gas merchant in North America and the United Kingdom. 1991, Enron asked the Securities and Exchange Committee to approve mark-to-market accounting. They approve that. What does that mean? We're doing a lot of Googling tonight. I told you it's a business night. Mark-to-market accounting, also known as fair value accounting, is an accounting method that values assets and liabilities based on their current market price. Okay, so I guess it's just a different way to do your accounting. So like if you own a piece of real estate, you don't account for what you paid for it. You account for what it's worth right now. So it's like a way to do accounting that's a little less based in like facts and a little more based in vibes, which is not a great sign. And then 1993, Enron and the government of the state of Maharashtra in India, they sign a formal agreement to build a massive power plant. The cost for construction are going to be $2.8 billion. Oh my God, I love my assistant. What is mark-to-market accounting? Also known as fair value accounting. Exactly. It emerged in the late 1880s and early 1990s. This value is based on what the asset would sell for rather than its original purchase price. This was in response to the U.S. saving and loan crisis when financial institutions were carrying inflated asset values on their books. The goal of mark-to-market accounting is to provide a more accurate valuation of the company's worth. Okay, so I guess that makes sense. Like if I bought a piece of land for $1 million and the economy crashes, that land is worth $500,000, not $1 million. So I should do my accounting like it's worth $500,000. Okay, I get it. I can see pros and cons with this because I can see how it makes things less like black and white. It's a little more like up to interpretation. But I also can see if you are not committing fraud, why this does make more sense. But I do think it kind of opens the door for people to be a little scammier than they could be otherwise. So 1996, Enron signs a contract giving its rights to explore 11 gas fields in Uzbekistan, a project that's going to cost $1.3 billion. Why are y'all spending money like you have it? Because you do not. I can assure you that. The goal was to sell gas to the Russian markets and to link Unikal's southern export pipeline crossing Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan. I don't know what this is exactly, but I do know they have no business doing it. Like I don't know the details of those countries and their resources and how they interact with each other or their economies. I don't know about that. But I do know Enron does not have $1.3 billion to be doing all that. January 8th, 1996, Enron and the government of that state in India reached an agreement that would shift some of the construction cost and lower electricity tariffs. And then another agreement is announced in February 1996. And then Richard Kinder, the COO, that's the chief operating officer of Enron, does not get the CEO job. COO is like one below CEO. CEO is chief executive officer, which is like over everything. Operating officer is over all of operations, which is like pretty much most things are operations. So then Enron announces that Jeff Skilling is taking over as CEO. Or COO, sorry. Jeff Skilling is now going to be in charge of operations. That guy that made the fake gas bank, yeah, let's put him in charge. Then July 1997, Enron executive Rebecca Mark tries to sell 50% of Enron International to Shell, but she does not get the deal done. Very Succession. She blames Cliff Baxter and Skilling for botching the negotiations. This is the only woman I have heard in this entire thing, so I'm inclined to be on her side. She was trying to get this problem to somebody else. She said, let's get you up out of here. You have to go. Then May 24th, 1999, Tim Belden, head of Enron's West Coast trading desk in Portland, Oregon, conducts his first experiment to exploit the new rules of California's deregulated energy market. This is known as the Silver Peak Incident. Belden creates congestion on power lines, which causes electricity prices to rise, and this cost California $7 million. This will be the first of many games that Belden and his operation play to exploit the opportunities in the California market. So things are getting quite sketchy. This is Enron's Vision and Values, 1998. That's the year I was born. Natural gas, electricity, endless possibilities.
25 at 250.
We're strong believers in competition.
Yeah, I can see that.
We have the people and the skill base and the experience to win in a competitive marketplace.
What are you seeing for next week and the balance of the month, Hank?
Virtually every industry that's opened up for competition sees tremendous innovation almost immediately.
Reducing electricity costs is only one benefit from choice and competition.
We're creating whole new businesses, in some ways even whole new industries.
Every year, every day, every week, you have to come up with new...
When you say we're creating whole new businesses, you're making them up. They're not real, though. I want you to know that.
ideas, new approaches to the business. That's
Clean.
not easy, but I think if you can get the organization in that mode, it's a tremendous competitive advantage for the company.
It starts with good people. Recruiting, retaining, motivating, creative people, intelligent people, really have the capability of thinking about the world a little differently.
And if you have good people and you have that good environment, they start coming up with good ideas that work in the market.
Yeah, I can't do this. I can't do the corporate propaganda. You get the vibes. So then, June 1999, Enron's board of directors exempts the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, from the company's code of ethics so that he can run a private equity fund. I feel like the code of ethics in some ways should exclusively apply to the CFO. Like, I feel like the CFO is the one person that we shouldn't be... What's the point of the code of ethics if the CFO can be exempt? The hell is that? The private equity fund is LJM1. It will raise money for and do deals with Enron. Got it. Everything's made up and the points don't matter. The stream is just capitalism capitalizing all over everything. But thank God to the rules that apply to hourly workers. It's like, no, you cannot have a shift meal. But the CFO is exempt from the code of ethics. Like, no jeans. The LMJ funds become one of the key tools for Enron to manage its balance sheet and make investors think that it's performing better than it is. Perfect. September 16, 1999, Enron's CFO Andy Fastow addresses Merrill Lynch in the World Trade Center, asking the team of investment bankers to find investors for the fund. He assures them, if there's a conflict between Enron and LJM, I'll favor LJM. This sounds like a great CFO. Are you not busy enough being the CFO? Is that not enough of a task for you? And then October 12, 1999, they exempt Fastow from Enron's code of ethics. I thought we already did that. Anyway, so that he can raise money for LMJ2. Oh, this is the second one. Great. Now there's 2 funds. And then October 13th, 1999, Merrill Lynch releases a placement memo for the LMJ2 fund. So that's awesome, awesome, awesome that a different investment firm is working with y'all and you're doing fraud. I love it. I love to see it. The rules when you make $10 an hour are like jail, but then the CEO gets bonuses for committing fraud. OMG, J-Lo filed for divorce. What an exciting time to be alive, you guys. And on the Enron stream of all nights. So then January 19th to 20th, 2000, annual analyst meeting. First day, Skilling says, Enron is just rocking and rolling. Second day, they roll out their broadband plan. Scott McNeely of Sun Microsystems shows up to offer his support. And by the end of the day, stock rises 26% to a new high of $67.25. April 2000, on a conference call with stock analysts, Skilling says, we've been swamped with new opportunities. May 2005, an Enron trader in an email to colleagues announces Death Star, a new strategy to game the California market. May 12, 2000, Timothy Belden, the chief trader for the West Coast Power Deck, sends an email to Enron headquarters in Houston confirming his strategy is working. So, sorry. So far, so good. Prices keep going up. Belden has made a massive bet that California energy prices will increase. His email confirms that prices are rising. May 22nd, 2000, the California ISO, Independent System Operator, the organization in charge of the supply and demand of electricity, declares a stage 1 emergency, warning of low power reserves. Isn't it great that when we give for-profit companies the ability to completely control the things we rely on to live, they just completely fuck us over, and then we don't have access to the things that we need to live? Because it's almost like their whole intention is making money and not making sure that the thing goes good. Because you might think that things running smoothly makes more money, but you're often wrong. You are often wrong. Learn that the hard way. Yes, Enron's headquarters is in Houston at this time. Then, June 12, 2000, Skilling makes a joke at a Las Vegas conference comparing California to the Titanic. So we're off to an awesome, awesome fraud in the new millennium. July 2000, Enron announces that its broadband unit has joined forces with Blockbuster to supply video on demand. That was very new for 2000. If they hadn't committed a ton of fraud, maybe they could have been like a forerunner in that. This also does remind me of like, how on Succession, Waystar owns like everything. Like they own media, they own cruise ships, they own all this random shit. And then if you guys have watched The Boys or Gen V, Vought is like a company that they made up as like a joke. It's like a part of the show. They own like all this random shit and it just makes no sense why they own all that. That's what this is giving. August 23rd, 2000, stock hits an all-time high of $90.56. The market valuation is $70 billion. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission orders an investigation into the strategies designed to raise prices in California. This is an Enron commercial. They're cutting edge, you
What
guys.
volume for 135?
It's like I'm blind. I can't see what's going on. I don't know what the market price is. The way they used to deal with it, they needed something and you needed it now. It could take you hours, days.
When did the price change?
What is the real price?
Dirmi a quanto è la borsa di Chicago. What is the real price?
The price was hidden, and it took an incredible amount of work to dig it out. Enron
What is
Online
this?
will change the markets for many, many commodities. It is creating an open, transparent marketplace that replaces the dark, blind
Okay, so they're doing commodity trading online. So you don't have to do it over the phone, so you can see the price right away. Got it.
system that existed. It is real simple. You turn on your computer, and it's right there.
What are we
And if
watching?
you want to do business, you push the button.
What is happening? Are they about to all kill
That's our
themselves?
vision. We're trying to change the world.
You changed the world. That's for damn sure. September 20th, 2000, Jonathan Well writes a piece about mark-to-market energy and companies. Investment analyst James Chanos reads this in the Texas Journal, a regional supplement to the Wall Street Journal. And then October 3rd, 2000, Enron attorney Richard Sanders travels to Portland to discuss Timothy Belden's strategies. November 1st, 2000, Freck investigation exonerates Enron for any wrongdoing in California. Awesome. They clearly did nothing wrong. December 6, 2000, Christian Yoder and Stephen Hall write an internal memo detailing Belden's strategies. Here's another commercial. This aired during the 2000 presidential debate, I guess. Same music. We're watching a mess. Are they in a cult? It is kind of giving cult.
Welcome, analysts. The result has been a disappointing performance. Welcome, analysts. This was a challenging fiscal year.
He's
for the
practicing.
company.
He's nervous.
Due to unpredictable weather, earnings are down.
Not due to the weather. He's got to take his Alka-Seltzer. He's so stressed. You guys don't understand. You've never had to just tell the shareholders that the value went down. You would have committed fraud too if you were going to have to tell the shareholders their value went down. It's the scariest thing. It's so mean.
But as everyone knows, you can't predict the weather. There's nothing you can do about it.
Enron has created a new market to protect revenue against unfavorable weather. Was that a commercial? Because it felt like a threat. Why? That is terrifying. I absolutely hate everything about that. What did we just watch? That literally felt like a psychological threat. These videos are just giving Jonestown. You can't predict the weather. Actually, meteorology has come a long way since 1990. That was 2000. They had the Weather Channel. So December 13th, 2000, Enron announces that President and Chief Operating Officer Jeffrey Skilling will take over as CEO in February, and Kenneth Lay will remain as chairman. So the guy that made up the weird natural gas bank of fake money, that's going to be our CEO. Perfect. At the end of 2000, Enron uses aggressive accounting to declare $53 million in earnings for broadband on a collapsing deal that hadn't earned a penny in profit. So on a deal that was not even going to work out, they were like, yeah, we made $53 million. Everything's literally fine. January 2001, Belden's West Coast Power Desk has the most profitable month ever. $254 million in gross profits. Less than 3 weeks later, rolling blackouts in Northern California. I don't know how they're making that happen, but they're fucking us over. Okay. Officials order another round of blackouts in March 2001. Because remember, less than a year before, California declared a stage 1 emergency about low power reserves.
One of the issues that happened today is our load continued to climb this morning. We thought we were going to be okay through the 9 o'clock hour, but the load continued to go up.
Stop saying the load went up.
And unfortunately, it looks like the blackouts are likely to continue.
See, these people have a real job. Working at the power grid is a real job.
Throughout the day and into this evening.
With out-of-state power imports down from yesterday and a staggering 15,000 megawatts of California power generation offline, ISO engineers had little choice but to order the blackouts continue today. Officials here are disappointed that people don't seem to be conserving
You didn't
as
have
much
power
power
for 2
as in
weeks?
previous emergencies.
One thing I would like to emphasize is we have not seen the kind of conservation we saw back in January and December. And, if we don't have conservation efforts, it just means that it's that much more megawatts that we're going to have to keep off the system.
Yesterday, California
This is
utilities
in March
had to
2001.
shed or interrupt a total of 3,500 megawatts to customers, and that inconvenience was shared between Northern and Southern California.
That's crazy that's just an acceptable solution. So January 22nd, 2001, quarterly analyst call Skilling reports outstanding, fantastic, tremendous. Then January 25th, an analyst conference in Houston, Texas. Skilling's bullish on the company. Analysts are all convinced. Ken Rice increases his estimates for the value of broadband. Bullish means characterized by rising share prices, like a bull. Yeah, because a bull market means it's going up. So February 2001, Tom White resigns from EES, Enron Energy Services, in the retail division that he headed since 1998, and he becomes Secretary of the Army. He cashes out with $14 million and starts to build a huge home in Naples, Florida. The purchase price for the property is $6.5 million. Probably what I would have done. February 2001, over the past year while he presided over the broadband service, Ken Rice cashes out $53 million in shares and options. For those of you that don't know, a lot of, what was I saying? Like, a lot of rich people and companies, like the CEO, the COO, all that stuff, a lot of times stock is a part of their compensation. So their salary is like 80% money and 20% stock to encourage them to make the stock price keep going up. It's like kind of weirdly corrupt, but I digress. So anyway, that's why they're all cashing out their stock, because they know they've been up to no good and that stock's going to probably be worthless soon. Like we said, Skilling is the CEO. Seems like there's a lot of CEO movement during that time. Whenever a company is having lots of changes in CEOs, that is never a good sign. That means like things are not going well. February 2001, Senior Anderson partners to meet and discuss whether to retain Enron as a client. They call the use of mark-to-market accounting intelligent gambling. Arthur Anderson was their accounting firm. We're going to get a little more into them later, I think. I saw their name in here when I hit start. Problems can arise when the market-based measurement does not accurately reflect the underlying asset's true value. This can occur when a company is forced to calculate the selling price of its assets or liabilities during unfavorable or volatile times, such as during a financial crisis. So their accountants, the guys that are in charge of their accounting, even they're like, this is a little bit sus. A little bit sus. My organization has had 4 executive directors in the past 2 years. Things are not good. Yeah, it sounds pretty rough. Praying for you. So February 14th, 2001, writer Bethany McLean interviews Skilling. Mark Palmer, the head of publicity for Enron, and Fastow go to Fortune to answer questions. Fastow to Bethany McLean: I don't care what you say about the company, just don't make me look bad. And the article by Bethany McLean is called "Is Enron Overpriced?" And then in an employee meeting, Skilling says, yes, it's a black box, but it is a black box that's growing the wholesale business by about 50% in volume and profitability. That's a good black box. Skilling announces Enron's goal as the world-leading company. So he's basically saying, no one knows how we make money, no one knows what we're doing, but we're making money. So whatever. So Enron transfers large portions of the EES business. What was that again? Enron Energy Services? Yeah, that's what it was. Enron Energy Services. So they transfer a large portion of the business into wholesale to hide the losses. I don't really know what that means. Oh, yes, I do. So their business was not making money. And instead of being like, hey, it's not making money, they just put part of the business into a different business so that it looked like they didn't lose any money. Then March 2001, Arthur Anderson takes auditor Carl Bass off of the Enron account. So an auditor, their job is to see if anything is weird. They take Carl Bass off of the Enron account. Then March 23rd, Enron schedules an unusual analyst call to boost stock. It works. So it seems like they just go on these calls and are like, it's great, it's all great, everything's great. And then their stock goes up. Then April 17th, 2001, they have the quarterly conference call. This is called the asshole call. Why is it called the asshole call? I want to look that up. Asshole call, Enron. Oh, because Skilling called someone an asshole on the call. Skilling called, so you appreciate it, Richard Berman's response to Skilling dodging his persistent questions about the financial health, and Skilling called him an asshole. Got it. Got it. Then May 17th, 2001, there's a secret meeting at the Peninsula Hotel. Saucy. With Schwarzenegger, Lay, and Milken. That was the financial guy. Schwarzenegger, I think, is Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was in government at this time. Kenneth Lay is the old CEO, who's still on the board. Not sure what he's doing there. Then June 21st, Skilling... I'm sorry, I just didn't expect that. Skilling is hit in the face with a blueberry tofu cream pie at the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco. What the hell was that for? What did Francine Kavanaugh know that we don't? I just really didn't expect that sentence to be there. Then June 2001, FERC, the Energy Regulatory Commission, finally institutes price caps and California energy crisis ends. Would you look at that? When you regulate businesses, it's good for the consumers. Would you look at that? Skilling is still saying, we're making money, we're making money, we're making money. Then July 13th, 2001, Skilling announces the desire to resign to Lay. Lay asks Skilling to take the weekend and think it over. There are two different views of what happened that day. According to Lay, he tried to talk Skilling out of resigning. Skilling says Lay didn't seem to care and offered to stay on for 6 months. Board members say he recommended the transition period to Lay. Lay claims Skilling wanted an immediate out. So Kenneth Lay is going to be the CEO again? Again, the amount of changes in CEOs is extremely, extremely chaotic. What's this?
I've heard your voices loud and clear. We have tough choices ahead. The first choice that we must make is the one that will determine our success. Shall we
Francine was arrested for the pieing? That's terrible.
Well, let me tell you something. The answer is clear.
Not just any pie, but a blueberry tofu cream pie.
Today, we're delving into the scandalous truth behind Arnold Schwarzenegger's governorship. We all know Arnold as the iconic action hero and bodybuilding legend, but his journey into politics took a dark turn. Let's explore how he went from Hollywood to the governor's office and the shocking revelations about
his protesting Enron's role in the California energy crisis. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, that's good meme material.
His hidden agenda. Arnold Schwarzenegger, a name synonymous with strength, charisma, and success. With his impressive physique and blockbuster movies, he captured the hearts of millions around the world. But few people know about the shady path he took to enter the world of politics. It all began in the early 2000s, when Schwarzenegger started showing interest in public affairs. Drawing on his celebrity status, he used his influence to advocate for various causes, including education and children's health. However, little did we know, there was a hidden agenda behind his seemingly noble efforts. Fast forward to 2003. Arnold Schwarzenegger announced his candidacy for the position of governor of California. His campaign capitalized on his fame, promising to bring change, transparency, and economic stability to the state. But what the public didn't realize was the deep-rooted connection Schwarzenegger had with powerful individuals, including the notorious Enron CEO, Kenneth Lay.
That was loud.
Robert, yeah, man. So the rumor's true? They're fucking taking all the money back from you guys? All the money you guys stole from those poor grandmothers in California? Yeah, Grandma Millie, man. But she's the one who couldn't figure out how to fucking vote on the butterfly ballot. But yeah, now she wants her fucking money back for all the power you charged jammed right up her ass for fucking $250 a megawatt hour.
Kenneth Lay, the man at the center of one of the biggest corporate scandals in history. He played a significant role in the California energy crisis of 2000-2001, which led to rolling blackouts and skyrocketing electricity prices.
I want you guys to get a little creative, okay, and come up with a reason to go down. Okay. Anything you want to do over there? Anything like that? Yeah, and whatever adjustment you make today is probably not going to work. We'll probably have to check it tomorrow afternoon again. I think that's a good plan, Rich. All right. I'll talk down to you. No problem.
Shockingly, Arnold Schwarzenegger had close ties to Lay and benefited from the financial support of Enron during his campaign. These connections raised serious questions about his true intentions and the influence of corporate interests on his governance. Critics argue that Schwarzenegger's association with Lay compromised his ability to serve the people impartially. They suggest that his policies and decisions were driven by the desire to protect the interests of corporations rather than prioritizing the needs of ordinary citizens. The scandalous truth behind Schwarzenegger's governorship
I would love California. To grab lunch with
People
Francine.
took to the streets, demanding accountability and transparency from their elected leader. The hidden agenda was slowly unraveling. As we dig deeper into Arnold Schwarzenegger's governorship, we uncover a web of secrecy and questionable alliances. While there have been many rumors and allegations surrounding Arnold Schwarzenegger's connection to Enron CEO Kenneth Lay, it's important to note that some of these claims have been disputed and remain speculative. It is suggested that Schwarzenegger's association with Lay and Enron led to favoritism towards energy corporations during his tenure as governor. Critics argue that his policies and decisions in the energy sector were influenced by Enron and other corporate entities, potentially at the expense of consumers and the...
Alrighty, I think we get the point. So, July 24th and 5th, 2001, Skilling meets with analysts and investors in New York. We will hit those numbers, we'll beat those numbers. Says LMJ is stopping and that all other issues are immaterial. All those are bunk, those are not issues for the stock. Then August 3rd, 2001, he makes another rah-rah speech about the energy services. after making a rah-rah speech about how they're making money, he lays off 300 employees. 300 people out of work now. August 11th, 2001, Skilling talks to Mark Palmer about preparing the press release for his resignation. August 13th, at the board meeting, Rick Bye outlines a disaster scenario if Enron's stock starts to fall. All SPEs crash. What's an SPE? I'll Google it. SPEs. Not right now. Finance. Special purpose entity, a legal structure created to fulfill a special purpose, often to isolate as assets, liabilities, or financial activities for a parent company. So basically all their little tiny companies that they were like shoving losses and shit into. All of those would crash. Skilling dismisses this. That evening in the board session only, Skilling in tears resigns. Oh no, you want to cry? You want to cry? You weren't crying when you made your fake energy bank. Then August 14th, 2001, Skilling's resignation announcement. In the evening, analyst and investor call. Skilling says the company is in great shape. Lay says the company is in the strongest shape that it's ever been in. And then Lay is named CEO. So they're literally just lying. They're literally just lying. Let me open this in a new window. I'll see if it'll let me do it while I'm logged in. Okay, cool. We can do it.
What is the future for Enron? In that lawsuit, Enron is seeking $10 billion in damages from Dynegy. So what is the future for Enron? Well, let's go to Eyewitness News reporter Jessica Willey, who picks up the story live and down.
Let me see what this said. So, news from the bankruptcy era, layoffs.
7,000 Houston employees' future means tomorrow. We've been getting a lot of calls from folks out there wondering if they should report in here tomorrow. A company spokesperson says, yes, indeed, they should report in until further notice. He says it's business as usual. Despite a bankruptcy filing, Enron's downtown Houston headquarters remain abuzz. Food going in, workers coming out. No official word yet of layoffs, but some employees look to be getting ready for Enron's more than 20,000 worldwide. These are definitely uncertain times.
It's hard because, I mean, I'm one that just had a baby, and you know, now I got to go out and look for a job in a bad time with the economy being bad and one being Christmas. So I'm kind of uneasy about it.
Still, Jim Bagandi stays committed and positive, even though he's been told that layoffs are looming. Monday or Tuesday may be the day, and when they come, energy industry expert Barbara Shook says,
I have a feeling it'll be pretty fast and furious. It'll be quite brutal. And I feel very badly for the employees because this is not the making of 99% of the people who work for Enron. This is the making of the top 1%.
Speak
on
it.
Most of them have gotten their millions and have gone away.
Only to leave behind bad news. Enron, once an energy giant, now amid government investigation, finds itself in Chapter 11 bankruptcy court. But beyond all the gloom and doom, perhaps that's the silver lining.
In a Chapter 11, what happens is, to the outside world, except for the fact that everyone knows that Enron filed, it's business as usual.
Nancy Rappaport is a bankruptcy lawyer and the University of Houston's Law Center dean. She says Chapter 11 means previous Enron debts can be paid off more slowly, but debts going forward get paid on time. The move gives the company a chance to accumulate cash and survive.
Ultimately, the good news is that in a Chapter 11 reorganization, there's a chance that the company's going to make it, which is better for everybody.
Now, some energy experts,
I feel like they're a little bit too optimistic right now. So they are filing Chapter 11, apparently. I feel like we just kind of skipped over that. I'm going to move this. When is this from? Let me get my bearings here. When did Enron file Chapter 11? Okay, we're getting to it. I think that should have been later. Anyway, so August 15th, 2001, this is before they filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Jim Canos thinks that the stock is going through the floor and bets aggressively on that. He notes that during Skilling's departure coincided with the release of second quarter 10Q stock report. Enron's cash flow was a negative $1.3 billion for the first 6 months of the year. So negative cash flow of $1 billion is less than ideal. Cheryl Watkins, the Enron vice president, writes a letter to Kenneth Lay expressing concerns about the accounting practices. Then she meets with Kenneth Lay and gives him the letter in a box, which she says Enron might be an elaborate hoax. So literally the company basically does not exist. And then this is Sharon Watkins talking about that. She's the whistleblower.
I had worked at Enron for 8 years by the time, the summer of 2001 rolled around. And I stumbled across very large accounting fraud at Enron in a very typical fashion. I switched positions. So, a fraud sort of comes on slowly. I mean, how many of you have heard the saying that a frog, if you toss a frog in boiling water, he'll leap out to save himself. But if you put him in a cool pot of water and slowly heat the water, he doesn't quite notice when it gets to be room temperature or lukewarm, but by the time it's really warm, he's too lethargic to jump out. Well, I'm like the frog thrown in the boiling water. I heard all the right things from Ken Lay. He was saying, if anyone's truly troubled, come tell us about what's bothering you. So that day I identified myself to Human Resources and I was on his calendar for the following Wednesday. And I fully expected, that truth would win out, that he would just hire a law firm, he would investigate my concerns, and he would find out that sure enough we had cooked our books. And it was a significant amount. The amount for 2000 was, we masked $500 million of losses, and our income that year was $1 billion. So on a pre-tax basis, it was misstating our earnings by over 50%. Well, Ken Lay, did not really look into my concerns. I ended up being subpoenaed to testify in front of Congress in February of 2002 when Enron had already collapsed into bankruptcy. And they showed me a memo from Vincent and Elkins, Enron's outside law firm. It was dated August 24th. I had met with Ken Lay on August 22nd. And the memo said, per your request, here are the potential consequences of discharging employees who raise accounting concerns. Damn. So his first reaction was to dump me on the street, put me in emergency job search mode. And that would have, I was the primary breadwinner for my family, that would have been very horrible. Now they said that I didn't really, Texas is a employment at will state, you can fire for no cause. But they did say there was some case law. How many lawyers are in the room? Or law students? Yeah, well, of course. Yeah, there was some case law that I might at least be able to bring a wrongful termination suit. I wouldn't prevail in court, but the structures, the raptors that I was concerned with, their cosmetics did not look so good right now, and it might not be good for those things to be discovered in a trial setting. So the advice was more like, just, don't fire her, and that was pretty much the way I was treated. I used to be on the 49th floor, which was 49 and 50 were the executive floors. I got put down to 16 in a cruddy little office with metal rent of furniture, and I was always snagging my suit on a desk drawer that wouldn't close, and no real work. But really Enron imploded too fast to get.
I hate when executives are like, they shoved me in this office and they didn't give me any work. And you didn't take the opportunity to go on YouTube and eat snacks? What do you mean?
Get rid of me. And 9/11 happened smack in the middle of that. So really the fall of 2001 was...
I don't mean to laugh at 9/11, but it just reminded me of, on Arrested Development where he's like, and then 9/11 happened and he's talking about how he doesn't have sex with his wife. I'm sorry, it's not an appropriate joke. I just thought of it.
A very, very bleak time because... 9/11 knocked us all off our feet. It was on the 16th floor,
9/11.
But it was alarming to me that I didn't see the captain of the ship sounding the alarm bells. That Ken Lay instead was, I found out later he just did this whitewash investigation, probably anticipating that the worst that would happen is some shareholder lawsuits.
Always about the shareholders. Always the shareholders. So this is the employee meeting after Jeff Skilling is gone and Kenneth Lay takes over again. Is this his third or fourth time being CEO? We're not going to watch the whole thing. I don't want to blame it on 9/11, but it certainly didn't help. That's the one I'm thinking of. can't I hear?
Good.
I don't think we're talking enough about the cross necklace.
Boy, I didn't expect that. But thank you. Thank you very much. There are some additional seats still around, particularly down front. If some of the rest of you that are down on the sides would come on down front a little further, because I know people are still trying to get in the back.
This is literally me to my class when none of them will sit in the front row. I'm like, you guys can sit here. You don't have to stand. There's seats.
There seems to be quite a bit of interest in this meeting. Well, I'm delighted to be back. I'm sorry Jeff did resign, but you know he did resign. It was voluntary. I think that's all been pretty well explained now. I tried to talk him out of it. The board tried to talk him out of it, but he was pretty firm in his decision. So the board accepted his resignation and asked me to reassume the CEO's job. And I'm excited. I think we've got a lot of great stuff going on.
Yada,
We're
yada,
not getting
yada.
much credit for it in the marketplace, for damn sure. But we will. And I'm going to share with you some of the things going on here shortly and show you the reason I am excited.
I hate meetings. They're
And
so
I do
boring.
think that the next several months, the next few years are going to be great for Enron.
So yeah, general notes, he's super, super positive. Then September 2001, Skilling shares $15.5 million worth of stock, bringing stock sales since May of 2000 to over 70 million. So that means in about a year, almost like a very significant portion of their stock owners are selling it. Like people feel like something's not going good. So September 26, 2001, employee meeting. Lay tells employees that the stock is an incredible bargain. Third quarter's looking great. That was that video we just saw. October 16th, 2001, Enron reports a $618 million third quarter loss and declares $1.1 billion in non-recurring charges against its balance sheet, partly related to structured finance operations run by financial officer Andrew Fastow. That's the guy that was exempt from the ethics thing. In the analyst conference call that day, Lay also announces a $1.2 billion cut in shareholder equity. What does that mean? I don't know what that means, but it doesn't sound good. So, October 17th, 2001, Wall Street Journal is written by John Emschwiller and Rebecca Smith appears. The article reveals that for the first time, the details of Fastow's partnerships, showing the precarious nature of their business. And this is when the Securities and Exchange Commission begins an informal probe of Enron. So I guess they haven't officially filed anything, but they're starting to look into it. October 22nd, 2001, Enron acknowledges the SEC's inquiry into possible conflict of interest related to the dealings with partnerships. So that fucking investment fund that they were doing deals with, the SEC is like, maybe you don't do that. Maybe you don't do that. Just thought. October 23rd, 2001, Lay professes his support for Fastow, saying he has the highest regard of his character. During the call with analysts in the employee meeting, Andy has operated in the most ethical and appropriate manner possible. Well, Andy is exempt from the code of ethics. Just going to bring that up again. Then October 2001, in a massive shredding operation, Arthur Anderson, the accounting firm, again, these are the accountants that are supposed to be in charge of their books, destroys 1 ton of Enron documents. A ton. 2,000 pounds of paper. A shredding operation. What companies will do is having a shredder's expensive. I know you're thinking of a regular paper shredder, the giant ones that can do so much paper. Because you gotta, banks and companies like this have to shred so much money or shred so much stuff because it has to do with money. So it's account numbers and things like that. You can't just throw it away. So some companies will hire a shredding company where they come there with their big shredders and do it all for you. 1 ton of documents. Then October 24th, 2001, Enron outs Fastow. Does that mean they fire him? I guess they fired him. Shareholder equity is basically the investment in the company. The cut is the dilution / the shares are worth less. Got it. So they're saying, okay, our company is worth less, so all your shares are worth less. So like I said, sounds not good, really. October 29th, 2001, in vain, Lay calls top government officials to solicit help for Enron, including Al Greenspan, Paul O'Neill, and Donald Evans, respectively the chairman of the Fed, the Treasury Security, and the Commerce Secretary. October 31st, 2001, Enron announces that the SEC inquiry is now a formal investigation. Not good. November 8th, 2001, Enron files documents. This really is all going on right around 9/11. Like, 9/11 just happened. Like, here's October, 9/11. 9/11 happened, and then they just had their employee meeting. Like, it was fine. Where was I? Enron files documents with the SEC where they revised their financial statements for the past 5 years to account for $586 million in losses. It kind of feels like bullshit that you can just revise your financial statements from 5 years ago. I would get it maybe 1-2 years where it's like, oh, that business went under, so we need to put the losses in. We didn't realize till afterwards we lost more than we realized, or we made more than we realized. I can give you maybe a 1 year leeway on that. 5 years for $586 million in like, come on, dude. Come on. The company starts negotiations to sell itself to Dinergy, a smaller rival, to try and avoid bankruptcy. November 9th, 2001, Denji, whatever this is, agrees to buy Enron for $9 billion in stock and in cash. So, in the midst, not just focused on the fraud, just on people's jobs.
The collapse of the deal between Enron and Dynegy has left Enron employees stunned, many of them wondering if they'll be getting their next paycheck.
Everybody's concerned about their job.
As it is right now, I think everybody's a little in shock.
People don't know if they get their paychecks on Friday.
Enron employees, some carrying boxes filled with belongings, leave their downtown headquarters, huddled against the cold and an uncertain future. News of the demise of the merger between Enron and Dynegy.
Ooh, thank you. Standard copy paper. 1 ton would be 50,000 sheets of paper. So yeah, 50,000 sheets of paper they shredded. I'm sure they didn't shred anything bad. They just wanted to recycle.
Left many in shock.
People are surprised. They're shocked at the way that things went from here to there so quickly.
Oh my God, wait. Princess Alexis 10. Fastow came to my college and spoke as a part of his, like, must do good. He doesn't feel like he did anything wrong. Jesus.
Enron accountant David Baconi says, like thousands of other employees, he's just wondering what will happen next and how he'll support his family if he loses his job.
I have a wife and 2 kids, and that's always a concern, you know.
You could always sell your body on the streets, sir. It's never too late.
What we're gonna do.
Especially because many workers are losing not only their jobs, but also their retirements as Enron stock keeps plunging.
Because that's the big thing. Tons of the employees had all of their net worth in Enron stock. That's why I never recommend buying your own company's stock, because it's kind of like all your eggs in one basket. If you want to buy a little bit, that's fine. But don't sink all of your money into it, because then if you lose your job, you're also losing all your stock, and vice versa. Like if the stock price plummets, you're also probably at risk for layoffs.
Yeah, I think that many people have lost a substantial amount of money.
According to Baconi, this news hits even harder because Enron had such bright prospects and such talented workers. Workers that invested their faith in Enron's future.
Unlike a lot of other companies, I mean, the employees here had a lot.
My mom's company gives her bonuses in stock. That's pretty normal. I mean, like, if stock is a part of your compensation, take it, cool, whatever. But don't take your cash and buy stock. Like when I worked at the real estate brokerage, we were a publicly traded company, and my managers would always be like, we buy stock all the time. You guys should be investing in our stock. Our stock price always goes up. And like, no. I had a little bit of their stock that was part of my compensation, but I never bought anything beyond that. And I think I sold it when I left.
A lot of faith in Enron. I mean, definitely. We are, there was a constant drive to always make things better here, to be a front runner.
This was supposed to be a very solid company.
He
no worries
scared.
about your future, right? If you come from a small .com startup, you go to Enron to have a safe future. But that's no longer there.
Despite that, not all employees are bitter.
Enron I don't know whether to say was or is a great company.
But some Enron employees say they are still hopeful that both their company and their jobs can be salvaged somehow. In downtown Houston, Suzanne Bose, News 2 Houston.
The House Financial Services Committee will begin the first congressional hearings on the Enron debacle tomorrow morning.
Yikes.
But they'll be doing it without much help from Enron. Late today, the company announced that neither CEO Ken Lay or any other company representative will be here to answer questions.
Don't you legally have to go?
There were very sophisticated people taking advantage of employees' money in their savings plan.
Congress wants to know what caused the Enron meltdown. Wants to know why employee retirement funds were wiped out, while at the same time, top executives were personally making millions.
It is really the most stunning example of corporate misbehavior I think I have ever
Is that
seen.
Bernie Sanders?
Committee members will be focusing on what they describe as the company's overstated earnings, mishandling of the 401k plan, possible securities fraud, and accounting irregularities.
I have grave concerns that there were actions taken that were not only inappropriate but perhaps fraudulent, for which there should be criminal consequences.
The House Financial Services Committee is just one congressional panel investigating Enron. The Energy and Commerce Committee has already sent investigators to Houston to interview Enron executives. Today, the committee asked Enron CEO Ken Lay to turn over thousands.
Who's that lady? That picture behind his desk. Who is that? Is that his wife? She's way too good looking for him. Who is that?
Thousands of documents. Early next year, the committee will begin holding its own hearings.
We want to hold their feet to the fire, and if there is some criminal activity, then obviously I want the Justice Department, who is investigating, Department of Labor, do their job.
Representative Richard Baker says if Enron executives continue to refuse to answer the committee's questions voluntarily, early next year, he'll begin sending out subpoenas for them. In Washington.
Get him. Get him. So November 19th, 2001, Enron restates its third quarter earnings and discloses that it is trying to restructure a $690 million obligation that would come due on November 27th. Because remember, I don't know if this is that money, but remember how they kept taking out loans and had all these construction costs? They still have bills to pay. I didn't give you every example, but there's lots of examples of them taking out loans. I'm assuming one of them is due, or the cost for a project is due, or something. November 28th, Enron shares plunged to below $1. So if you remember, the all-time high price was, I think, $90. So that means, let's say I had $90,000 in my retirement account. You should probably have more than that if you're old, but let's say I'm my age and I have $90,000 in my retirement account. That's awesome to have at my age, $90,000. I'm working at Enron. I have my $90,000 retirement. I'm feeling good. The stock price plummets. My retirement is now worth $1,000. All that money I'd been working for years and years and years to put away through Enron stock, because that was their retirement package for this company, which was much more common back then, not really so much today. All my money's gone. All that money I worked for and invested. Naturally, that energy company, Dinergy, withdraws from the deal, and then this is where they file Chapter 11. So that video we watched earlier, I think it was supposed to be right here. Enron files Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This is the largest bankruptcy in U.S. history. Accountant, loans got called early because lenders were like, hey, you clearly aren't great at money. Thank you, Alexis. So yeah, like I mentioned, they would borrow money. The people wanted the money back, and I guess they wanted it back early because they saw like shit's kind of hitting the fan. I think I should get my money back right now. This is 12/12/2001, and that is Bernie Sanders. If you heard me earlier, can y'all see that? Yeah, when I popped the slides up, I saw it was Bernie Sanders.
I yelled back, thank you, Mr. Weldon. And our last participant opening statement is Mr. Sanders for 2 minutes. Thank you.
Imagine having enough to retire and these slimy men ruin everything, and now you have to keep working while they're at their beach houses. I would literally rob them and then establish squatters' rights in their house, because if I'm going to be having a bad time, so are you. So are you.
Mr. Chairman, and thank you for holding this hearing.
Bernie!
It seems to me that Enron's collapse raises several very important issues, some of which has already been discussed by my colleagues. Clearly, we must protect employees from seeing their retirement funds ripped off and their life savings go down the tubes.
Yes.
We've got to look at this in terms of the implications of the private.
They did hostile takeovers, so hostile take over their beach house. They have to respect the hustle. They really would. I'd be like, this is a hostile takeover. The board of your neighborhood voted that I could move in. I'm kind enough to let you also stay in the guest room.
Privatization of Social Security, as some would have us do, and also understand that other companies around this country in different ways are ripping off the retirement plans and the pensions of their workers.
Speak on it,
Second
Bernie.
of all, we want to examine the role of accounting firms like Arthur Andersen. As many know, Andersen recently settled a suit brought against them by the SEC for $7 million as a result of a failed audit at Waste Management Incorporated. The question arises, what was Arthur Andersen doing when Enron was cooking its books? How much confidence should the American people have in companies like Andersen? But the third issue, Mr. Chairman, that has not yet been raised, it seems to me perhaps to be the most important, and that is the role of big money in the political process and the need for real campaign finance reform.
He really has
Since 1992,
been doing the same
Enron has
things the whole
contributed
time.
over $5 million to Republicans and Democrats. During the last 2 years, Enron has spent $4 million lobbying Congress and the White House. The chairman of Enron, Kenneth Lay, and his wife contributed close to $800,000 to the Republican Party since 1988. During the 2000 presidential campaign, Enron made available its fleet of corporate jets for political travel by President Bush, candidate Bush. Now, what did Enron get in return for their campaign contributions from the federal government? Amazingly enough, as far as I understand, Mr. Chairman, they are still in line today for a $254 million tax rebate if the Republican House version of the economic stimulus bill becomes law. Thank you, Enron, for all the good work that you are doing, and you're going to get a check of $254 million from the American people.
That is fucking insane. That is insane.
Clearly, that's an outrage. Several months ago, the Bush administration refused to assist California and other states cope with severe energy crisis.
If you can't begin to wrap up, Mr. Sanders.
Costing consumers tens of millions of dollars. There is no question but Enron, through their political contributions and influence, has had an enormous impact on energy policy and the way this government does business. That's wrong. It's got to be changed.
Why is no one clapping? Thank you, Bernie. I'm sure no one listened to you. January 9th, 2002, the Justice Department confirms they've begun a criminal investigation of Enron. January 10th, 2002, Arthur Andersen announces that employees in its Houston division had destroyed documents, like we mentioned. January 23rd, Lay resigns as chairman and CEO of Enron. Then, January 25th, 2002, trigger warning, Cliff Baxter, the former Enron vice chairman, killed himself. Yikes. January 30th, 2002, Stephen Cooper, the turnaround guru, takes over as Enron CEO. What do you do in your life to know about the turnaround guru? This is an Arthur Andersen, the accountant, refuses to testify before Congress.
Swear that you will tell the testimony you will give this committee is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. You are now under oath, and you may give a 5-minute summary of your written testimony if you choose to.
I have no summary, sir.
Okay. Would have testified this morning. This committee have been willing to... I have a specific question for you, Mr. Duncan. You were fired by Andersen last week for orchestrating an expedited effort among the Andersen-Enron engagement team to destroy thousands of paper documents and electronic files relating to the Enron matter after learning of an inquiry by the Securities and Exchange Commission into Enron's complex financial...
We want to go back to who unalived themselves. While we watch this, I'll Google
transactions. Did you give an order to destroy documents in an attempt to subvert governmental investigations into Enron's financial collapse? And if so, did you do so at the direction or suggestion of anyone at Andersen or at Enron?
Okay, so pause to talk about the guy who offed himself. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. Clifford Baxter was an Enron executive. He resigned before committing suicide. Prior to his death, he had agreed to testify before Congress. So I guess... He was being sued. He would later be sued for $30 million after the bankruptcy due to his sale of $30 million worth of Enron stock in the months prior. Okay, so he sold stock before and he was getting sued for that. And on January 25th, he agreed to testify before a congressional committee regarding his knowledge of the scandal, and he was found dead in his Mercedes from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So, yikes, yikes, yikes. A lot going on there.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to answer the committee's questions, but on the advice of my counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question based on the protection afforded me under the Constitution of the United States.
Damn.
Will you invoke your Fifth Amendment rights in response to all of our questions here today?
Respectfully, that will be my response to all your questions.
I'm disappointed to hear that.
Damn.
Continuing on my time.
I have to teach the Constitution next week. I should use this as an example. You can always plead the fifth. So the accountants pleading the fifth is not a great ideal. This is the Enron investigation. Let me see if it'll let us watch this.
$10 billion in damages from Dynegy. So what is the future
this is
for
that
Enron?
video we watched earlier.
Eyewitness News reporter Jessica Willey, who picks up the story.
Employees that look to be getting ready.
See, this is what we watched a little too early. So, but that's not okay. That was Facebook. This says C-SPAN. I feel like that went to my old link. Why aren't you working? Okay. There we go. Now I found it. This is the correct video. Why are you playing? Why does my mouse not work?
Now a news conference on the Senate's investigation of the financial collapse of Enron Energy Corporation, which
This is 32 minutes. I don't think I can handle C-SPAN for 32 minutes. I'm sorry about that. This is Bush talking about Enron. Hopefully this one's shorter. I'm sorry. I just couldn't handle 30 minutes of C-SPAN, especially when the mouse wasn't working, so we couldn't pause it.
The issue with reporters after a meeting with his economic team this morning in the Oval Office. His comments are about 10 minutes.
Met with my economic security team last week to talk about ways to create jobs. We're meeting again with components of the team to talk about one part of economic security, and that's pension security. One of the things we're deeply concerned about is that there have been a wave of bankruptcies that have caused many workers to lose their pension.
You can tell in his eyes he literally doesn't give a shit at all. He's like, okay, cool. I had a meeting. There were some guys, some people lost money. I guess it's my problem.
Pensions, and that's deeply troubling to me. And so I've asked the Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Commerce to convene a working group to analyze
now watch this drive
pensions rules and regulations, to look into the effects of the current law on the hardworking.
So it's important enough for the president to be talking about it. This situation is beyond his capacity. I firmly believe that. So February 2nd, 2002, the Powers Report was a 218-page summary of an internal investigation into Enron's collapse. This was led by the University of Texas Law School Dean William Powers, and it spreads blame among self-dealing executives and negligent directors. Corporate governance failures. The report highlights significant failures in Enron's corporate governance, focusing on the lack of oversight by the board of directors and the Audit and Compliance Committee. These groups failed to properly monitor management's actions, allowing questionable practices to continue unchecked. Self-dealing executives. Several top executives, including CFO Andrew Fastow, engaged in self-dealing by creating and managing off-the-books partnerships with special purpose entities. They use, how is 218 pages a summary? That's a whole book. That's why this is literally confusing as shit, and they don't want us to know about it, which is why we're here learning about it, thanks to my assistant. So they used their special purpose entities to manipulate financial statements. So basically, they would have these little special purpose entities that they would shove all the losses onto and not claim them, but then they would claim the profits. So it just looked like they were making money when they weren't. This enriched the executives personally while hiding the company's true financial condition. Misleading financial practices. The report details how Enron used complex financial structures and accounting loopholes to misrepresent their financial health. This included inflating profits, hiding liabilities, and engaging in risky business ventures without adequate disclosure to shareholders and the public. Compliancy and negligence. Lawyers, except trial lawyers, are bad at summarizing because they're lawyers. We love them anyway. We love them when we need them. We don't love them when we're trying to do fraud. The report criticizes not only the executives directly involved, but also those who fail to act, including their board members, auditors, and outside consultants. Their negligence allowed fraudulent activities to go undetected for years. Consequences and recommendations. The report calls for increased accountability, better oversight mechanisms, and stronger regulatory controls to prevent similar corporate failures in the future. How do you fuck up so much that a summary of what you did is a whole book? Literally. So, this is a must watch because me, the VA, had no clue what was even happening until I watched this. So this is a recap explained. I feel like we know what's going on, though.
Hey guys, welcome to another video by the Financial Controller. My name is Bill Hanna, and in this video, I'd like to discuss another interview question that comes up in accounting and finance interviews, and that is the Enron bankruptcy and the fallout that followed. And so we'll be going over the timeline of events as well as the accounting practices that Enron adopted and that led to its demise. The story begins with a merger that happened in 1985 between two companies, the Houston Natural Gas Company and Internorth Inc. And then that resulted in the formation of the combined entity, Enron. The CEO of Houston Natural Gas at the time was Ken Lay, and he continued to become the CEO of the combined entity, Enron. Then in 1990, Ken Lay, who was still the CEO, hired Jeff Skilling. Jeff Skilling will become really important in the story later because he becomes the architect of an accounting technique which we'll discuss, mark-to-market. Jeff Skilling was at the time one of the partners at McKinsey & Company, which was the consulting company advising Enron. In 1992, Jeff Skilling devised a new accounting technique called mark-to-market, by which he can adjust the value of an asset on the balance sheet from its historical cost up to the fair market value and capture that difference as a gain or revenue.
Yes,
so basically this allowed him to, when he built the power plant, to look at the value of the power plant today when you built it, and then look at its future revenue, and then adjust the value of the plant based on the cash flow that it's expected to generate.
Okay, so you can claim money that you've never actually earned. You can claim future money.
Allowing him to capture the projected revenue from that plant as revenue today, which is crazy, but believe it or not, this technique got approved by the SEC in 1992.
The SEC does not care about us.
The effect of using the mark-to-market technique has been incredible for revenue and for the stock performance in general. So as you can see, the stock has gone from 1990 to the year 2000 from somewhere around $10 a share to somewhere around $85 a share. Also in the year 2000, Enron entered a deal with Blockbuster to provide a service, video on demand service. And so basically this partnership was going to allow Blockbuster to streamline movies online. This was before Netflix created the video on demand service.
Look what they stole from
Enron
us.
was going to provide the broadband or the internet service behind it. Then what Enron did is that took the profits from the contract that they expect to make in the future and booked it as revenue today in the year 2000, obviously inflating revenue by a big margin. And so obviously this deal went nowhere because the technology wasn't there yet. And so this was the beginning of the end for Enron because the performance of the business, as far as the cash that's coming in, wasn't matching up with the revenue that's being booked. But for investors, including retail and institutional investors, the stock was a no-brainer to invest in. Because of the mark-to-market practice that Enron did, revenue growth was incredible. So this is a stock that had amazing revenue growth. And also the debt-to-equity ratio, because you had such an amazing revenue on...
Do we get it? I feel like we get it. Should I keep going?
Your books, you're able to show tons of profit, and that inflated your retained earnings. And in the end, your debt to equity ratio was really appealing. And as a result, when you have these two factors, the stock price was going through the roof. And so
Someone asked a good question. When I left, they were an oil and gas company, but now they're doing Blockbuster delivery? Close. They were going to turn Blockbuster into Netflix, and they were going to provide the internet for it. They're basically... Yeah, we'll finish the video. They're basically doing the most.
You really had to invest in that stock if you wanted to make money. And because so many people and institutions and pension funds were invested in the stock, the fallout of the bankruptcy of Enron in 2001 had such a huge effect on Wall Street. A lot of people lost their pensions, lost their retirement funds, and it was just like a bad situation for many people.
Bad.
In 2001, after Enron declared bankruptcy, obviously the stock went from $85 or $88 a share all the way down to about 50 cents per share.
That's so embarrassing.
So, as you can imagine, Ken Lay and Jeff Skilling were arrested and prosecuted. Basically, the prosecution lasted from 2001 all the way to 2006, during which, in 2006, Ken Lay died from a heart attack as he was having health issues prior, and I imagine the stress from the prosecution was pretty tough. And so he died while in custody, and then Jeff Skilling...
Enron is the employee that's always running around looking busy, but never actually working or getting anything done. That really sums it up well.
Was convicted and sentenced to 12 years in jail. Jeff Skilling, by the way, just got out of jail in 2019, and surprisingly, he's back in the business. He said that during his jail time, he came up with a business plan for an energy software business. And so it's amazing. I'm not sure how he's going to be able to get back into the business or if anyone is going to trust him. But that's basically the news. Now,
that's basically the news. Oh yeah, after serving his federal prison sentence, he's back in the game.
As far as who's accountable for this disaster at Enron, I think you have to think of two parties. One is management, which was Ken Lay and Jeff Skilling. And then two, you have to think of the auditors, which at the time was the firm Arthur Andersen. At the time, there were 5 big accounting firms, KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, and Arthur Andersen. And because of this fiasco here at Enron, Arthur Andersen went out of business because many of the big public companies that were using Arthur Andersen for the audit engagements.
I think there's a rule that says, like, if you're publicly traded, you have to have, like, outside auditors, and they get to pick what company to hire. So basically, no one wanted to hire Arthur Andersen because, like, you didn't see that they were doing massive fraud, and then the company went out of business.
Or advisory engagements, let go of Arthur Andersen and hired another firm because the public trust was just eroded and nobody trusted Arthur Andersen anymore. And so there was a big exodus of partners and staff from Arthur Andersen that went to work then later for the other, became Big Four after the dissolution of Arthur Andersen.
That's what someone left me a comment. They were like, I'm an accountant and this completely changed accounting forever. And I guess that makes sense that one of the major players literally just disappeared.
The other big consequence of the fall of Enron was the enactment of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, also known as SOX 404. Basically, Sarbanes-Oxley states that every company has to have a framework of internal controls. The purpose of the internal controls is to ensure the integrity of its financial statements, and that management has to sign off on the integrity of the financial statements and on the effectiveness of its internal controls. Sarbanes-Oxley also states that the auditors who signs off on the financial statements of the company not only signs off on the financial statements, but also signs off on the effectiveness of the internal controls of the company. That's it for this video. If it adds any value...
He's kind of an icon, I have to say. I'm a huge fan of his work. So something that the video missed, the collapse of Enron was driven by its accounting practices involving SPVs, special purpose vehicles. A special purpose vehicle is a separate legal entity created by an organization. So kind of like an LLC, but it's under your same organization. Enron's operations failed to generate sufficient cash flow, prompting the company to seek external debt financing. To obscure this debt, they established SPVs, which it controlled, thus engaging in transactions with itself. So they're doing business with themselves. By not consolidating these SPVs, Enron avoided including their debt on their balance sheet. Although Arthur Andersen, their auditors, eventually required the consolidation of these SPVs, the mandate came too late, leading to the rapid depletion of Enron's cash reserves. Under U.S. generally accepted accounting principles at the time, investments in certain legal structures or partnership would need to be classified as non-controlling, resulting in no consolidation and merely requiring disclosure on footnotes. The situation deteriorated when it was discovered that many of the supposed outside investors were actually related parties, such as Enron's CFO, Andrew Fastow, his friends and family, or that Enron had guaranteed the associated equity risk. The complex scenario is thoroughly explored in the books The Smartest Guy in the Room and Conspiracy of the Fools, which provide detailed accounts of the scandal. Interesting. So February 7th, 2002, to get back to our timeline, Fastow and his former top aide Michael Copper invoke the Fifth Amendment before Congress. Skilling testifies saying he knew of no problems at Enron when he resigned. I do not believe that for a fucking second. Lay invokes the Fifth. He refuses to testify as well. So I can forgive fraud, but I cannot forgive being a fucking coward. If you're going to commit fraud, own up to it. So, February 14th, 2002, the whistleblower Sharon Watkins, who we watched the video with the cross, she testifies before Congress against Skilling and Lay. This is heard before Congress.
Here we go.
She came to serve. Bag and everything. Yes. Yes, cameras in her face.
But today I look forward to hearing from an extraordinarily courageous woman who has been a bright spot.
What if we circled up, held hands, and admitted to our fraudulent behavior like real men?
Watkins, we thank you.
For 10 minutes for questions. Give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
May be seated. You are under oath, and you are recognized for your opening remarks.
I was highly alarmed by the information I was receiving. My understanding as an accountant is that a company could never use its own stock to generate a gain or avoid a loss on its income statement. I continued to ask questions and seek answers, primarily from former co-workers in the Global Finance Group or in the business units that had hedged assets with Raptor. I never heard reassuring explanations. I was not
She couldn't wear the cross, so there wasn't a violation of church and state.
With my concerns. To do so, I believe, would have been a job-terminating move. On August 14th, 2001, I urged Mr. Lay to find out who lost that money. If he discovered that this loss would be borne by Enron shareholders via an issuance of stock in the future, then I thought we had a very large problem on our hands. I gave Mr. Lay my opinion that it is never appropriate for a company to use its stock to affect its income statement. As I was doing my work and looking at these assets hedged by Raptor, my concern was that it seemed to be just common knowledge that the Raptor losses were backstopped by Enron stock. And an analysis was always looked at, what's the value of Enron stock compared to the money Raptor owes us? And I was shocked that people could explain this to me with no concern in their voice, like there was some magic structure that Enron and Anderson had come up with to make this work.
And did it seem to be, did you get the impression, or was it said to you by others that they thought that this was perfectly legitimate, or that it... But
my concern was that wasn't going to stick, that I gave it less than a 5% probability that this was going to go quietly. And I was highly concerned that not only had the Titanic hit the iceberg, but we were already tilting.
Is it and it legitimate also that it seems as if everyone understood that the partnership could never make good on that loss. So there was so people who actually understood the partnership understood that.
Yikes on bikes. So March 14th, 2002, former Enron auditor Arthur Anderson LLP is indicted for obstruction of justice and for destroying tons of Enron documents, and the SEC begins investigating the energy company's finances. That was back in October 2001 when they did that. April 9th, 2002, David Duncan, the former Enron auditor, pleads guilty to obstruction. June 15th, Arthur Anderson convicted of obstruction after a 6-week trial that included 72 hours of jury deliberations spread over 10 days. The conviction was later overturned by the Supreme Court, because of course it was. Why would it have stuck? I say yikes on bikes all the time because of you now. That's what I say to, like, avoid cursing at school. I'm like, yikes on bikes. So, August 21st, 2002, Michael Copper pleads guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering conspiracy, acknowledges funneling millions of dollars to Fastow through myriad financial schemes, and agrees to cooperate with investigators. August 31st, Arthur Andersen surrenders its license to practice accounting. 85,000 people lose their jobs. $9 billion in annual earnings disappear. October 2nd, 2002, Fastow is charged over Enron's collapse. October 16th, 2002, Arthur Andersen sentenced to probation and a $500,000 fine. So to be clear, 85,000 people lost their jobs and they lost $9 billion, but the fine is only $500,000. Okay, perfect. The firm is already banned from auditing public companies, with only a few hundred employees left on the payroll after their conviction. October 31st, 2002, Fastow indicted on 78 charges of conspiracy, fraud, money laundering, and other accounts, and he pleads not guilty. What a loser. So here are the verdicts. Horrifying
I'm going to
noise.
make a very brief comment. Obviously, the other times later. Certainly, we're surprised. I think probably more appropriately to say we're shocked. Certainly, this was not the outcome we expected. I firmly believe I'm innocent of the charges against me. As I have said from day one, I still firmly believe that as of this day.
And I believe I'm
despite
6'2".
what happened today, I am still a very blessed man. I have on my left this beautiful lady that's my wife. I have a very warm and loving and Christian family that supports me. A lot of friends, including some out there in the audience right now. And most of all, we believe that God, in fact, is in control. And indeed, he does work all things for good for those who love the Lord. And we love our Lord, and ultimately, all of these things will work for good.
Getting religious.
Thank you so much for all
This
your
is
courtesy,
giving I did
all
not
your
have sexual
interest.
relations
And
with that
obviously,
woman.
as time goes on, we'll have more things to say, but that's all I want to say today. Thank you.
As I told him, we've just begun the fight. So, again, thank you all. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Man forgot there's actual laws after being exempt from the moral code.
Why not? But I'd just like to thank first of all, I'd like to thank Dan for all his support and everything that he made happen. I'd like to thank my family for sticking by me, and particularly my kids, Kristen, Jeffrey, and JT. They're just great. And I think we fought a good fight, and something's worse, something's done. So
He said, I've forgiven myself. He said that's enough.
Very pleasant, and I appreciate it.
Oh,
I'm going to sit down and take a look at everything, and I know there are a number of issues that we litigated hard and lost before the trial and even during the trial. It's too early for me to try to comment on that, but we will have a full and vigorous appeal.
Did you expect the jury to come back this rapidly? I mean, this was 5 days. I realize you can't guess on that.
No, you can never tell. Yesterday we got a note that they wanted exhibit lists, and we all speculated they were going to be in there a bit longer. So we were a little surprised today, but they gave it 5 full days, and they saw it their way. So.
Please stop. The high-pitched mic sound is killing me. Yeah, I'm kind of over it as well. So the legacy of Enron, the SOX Act of 2002, was a landmark law that was passed by U.S. Congress in response to the Enron scandal and other financial scandals around this time. It was named after its sponsors. Penalties. It has strict penalties on lawbreakers, including harsh penalties for destroying, altering, or fabricating financial records. It prohibits auditing firms from doing any concurrent consulting businesses for the same client. That's really good. So a lot of accounting firms are also consultants. Consultants are a company that you hire to come to your company and tell you how you can make more money. So it's a conflict of interest for the accountants to also be consultants, because you're supposed to be doing legitimate accounting, but you're telling us how to make more money. So, did Congress used to be normal? I think a lot of us who were born in the 90s wouldn't know. I don't think Congress has ever been fully normal. They go through ebbs and flows of normalness. I think they were a little more normal during this time, but you have to keep in mind, right before the Civil War, they were beating the shit out of each other on the congressional floor, within inches of their lives. It created strict reforms to existing securities regulations. So the legacy of Enron.
Thank you so much. At 6:33, it's been 20 years since the fall of Enron, one of the biggest scandals in the history of corporate America.
The epicenter of this, of course, right here in Houston. Our Kathy Hernandez live downtown with how the fall of Enron shook the city to its core. Kathy,
bring
good
back
morning.
Congressional Fight Club.
Well, good morning to you. We are right here outside the old Enron building. Take a look at the front doors here. It's where you may remember.
I'm going to skip over this because it's almost 9 and I want to get to their convictions and stuff. So April 5th, 2003, Republican former Assemblyman Howard Calagoonian, that sounds like a fake name, and the taxpayer group People's Advocate announced separate campaigns to try and recall the California governor. March 19th, 2003, Enron announces the company will keep its North American pipelines and 18 international pipelines and power assets to emerge from bankruptcy as 2 separate companies with different names. California recall supporters began collecting the signatures to put the governor on the ballot to get recalled. Andrew Fastow's wife, Leah, and 7 former executives are charged. Leah Fastow is charged with conspiracy and filing false tax forms for allegedly participating in some of her husband's deals. Former Enron treasurer Ben Gleason and mid-level executive Dan Boyle are also charged for allegedly participating in the schemes. Additional charges are filed against Andrew Fastow. July 11th, 2003, Enron files reorganization plans in its bankruptcy case, says that most creditors will receive about 1/5 of the money that they owe. They owe $67 billion, and they're like, we can definitely do 20% of that. We can definitely do 20% of that. And they did a revision. So it's not 67 billion, it's 66.4. Everybody relax. It's not even 67 billion, just 66.4. Then July 2003, California Secretary of State announces that Davis will face a recall election. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger announces that he's going to run for governor. And California's lieutenant governor breaks ranks along with other prominent Democrats, announcing that he will run for governor. Dianne Feinstein rules out running for governor, saying the election is more and more like a carnival every day. Ben Gleason, the former Enron treasurer, pleads guilty to 1 count of conspiracy, and the former Enron executive is to be put in, and is the first former executive that's going to be put in jail. October 7th, 2003, Arnold Schwarzenegger wins the recall election, even though he was very buddy-buddy with Enron. That's interesting. November 18th, 2003, Enron announces that it will sell Portland General Electric to a partnership backed by Texas Pacific Group for cash and assumed debt. So they're just like selling shit off to pay shit off. January 6, 2004, Enron's corporate roadmap for emerging from bankruptcy receives a New York judge's initial blessing and will be sent for creditors to accept or to reject the plan that will pay them a fraction of what they're owed. Then January 14th, Andrew and Leah Fastow plead guilty. Andrew faced 98 counts, pleading guilty to 1 charge of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and 1 charge of conspiracy to commit wire and securities fraud. He agreed to 10 years in prison. He's going to forfeit $23.8 million, including homes in Galveston and Vermont, and forfeit claims on another $6 million that was held by third parties. And he was cooperating with the task force for the investigation, and he was going to be sentenced in 2006. Leah Fastow pleaded guilty to 1 count of filing false tax report, failing to report $47,800 in income on her personal taxes, part of more than $200,000 that was undeclared after 4 years. She's released from prison after a 1-year term. I don't know why his sentencing took so much longer than hers did. On February 19, 2004, named in 35-count indictments, Skilling pleads not guilty. Bernie Sanders is hostily taking over those homes in Vermont. So Skilling pleads not guilty to wire fraud, security fraud, and conspiracy to insider trading. He's the highest rank Enron executive to face criminal charges, and charges against Richard Cossey also expanded the indictment to 31 counts. So he's still not taking accountability. He pleaded not guilty. Paul Riker, former director of investor relations and security for Enron's board of directors, pleads guilty to one felony count of insider trading. She agrees to pay back $499,000 in profit that she made by selling Enron stock before the public knew about big losses. That's internet trading. Lay is escorted in the courthouse in handcuffs, and Riker is to be sentenced in September 2005. I guess he spoke on her case. July 8th, 2004, indicted in... How much more do we have left? Okay, still a little bit. We're going late tonight, y'all. Indicted on 11 counts of criminal fraud and making misleading statements, Ken Lay surrenders to the FBI. After pleading not guilty, he calls a news conference to proclaim his innocence and argue that while he takes responsibility for the failure, only a Superman could know everything that happens at his company. It's been a tragic day for me and my family. Ken Rice, the former co-CEO of the broadband stuff, pleads guilty to a single count of security fraud. Mike Coing, former head of investor relations, pleads guilty to a charge of aiding and abetting security fraud. He's going to be sentenced. You can see a lot of people get sentenced. A lot of people get sentenced. Enron's first criminal trial ends with their accountant Sheila Kanique is acquitted, and the former VP Dan Boyle and 4 former Merrill Lynch bankers are convicted of conspiracy and fraud in the Nigerian barge deal. What's the Nigerian barge deal? They're doing a lot. They're doing a lot during this time. Should we skip to the quiz and get through the material? No, we're almost done. We only have a couple slides left. Yeah. We're almost done. So anyway, January 7th, 2005, the U.S. Supreme Court agrees to consider overturning the conviction of Arthur Andersen accounting firm for obstruction of justice and the shredding of documents. Like we saw later, I think that did get overturned. February 25th, 2005, not 2000 and fraud. The fraud and conspiracy of Lay, the founder of Enron Corporation, and the chief executive Skilling is set for January 17th, 2006. May 31st, 2005, the Supreme Court overturns the Arthur Andersen decision. December 28th, 2005, Richard Causey, who was to go on trial, pleads guilty. He gets 7 years, and then the trial of Lay and Skilling begins. They are both convicted. Lay is convicted on all 6 counts of conspiracy and fraud. Skilling is convicted on 19 of 28 counts of conspiracy, fraud, and insider trading. In July, Kenneth Lay dies before sentencing, so he never went to prison because he's dead. And Skilling gets 24 years and 4 months and forfeits $45 million. And then Andrew Fastow gets 6 years. 24 years versus 6 years is really different because I feel like they were kind of both equally guilty.
I'm here today to mainly put...
This is a former employee.
The Enron saga and make sure that Jeff Skilling gets what's coming to him. I am asking the judge to give him the maximum sentence. I think the majority of the employees never did like Jeff Skilling. He was arrogant and he was... you could tell he's arrogant. He's a greedy man. I worked at Enron for 18 years. I lost all of my retirement money, which was over $500,000.
Damn, she lost $500,000 of retirement.
I turned the nice age of 65 next month, and was looking forward to retiring and doing volunteer work and traveling. But,
that's terrible.
I'm gonna have to work. To have a job for the rest of my life. When you work
18
for
years.
That you believe in.
That's terrible.
Then you are lied to, and you feel betrayed by the people that you trusted. But I'll make it. I've got a lot of faith, and I'll make it.
I want to hug her too.
There are a lot of people worse off than me, and I'm here for those that couldn't be here. And
I'm obsessed with her.
Closure, and when I see him going off to prison, that will be closure for me.
She's better than me. I would have physically attacked him in the courtroom. This is a documentary, or a trailer for the documentary about them.
It had taken Enron 16 years to go from about $10 billion of assets to $65 billion of assets. It took them 24 days to go bankrupt.
We've laughed a lot at this stream, but this is the part that gets me furious.
arrogance, intolerance.
All that money you guys stole from those poor grandmothers?
We can add $1 gazillion to the bottom line.
All right, that sounds fantastic.
Did you convert stock worth $66 million?
I don't know. I netted approximately $100 million.
Enron is a company that deals with everyone with absolute integrity.
Talking about my compensation, and if I step on somebody's throat on the way, that doubles it. Well, I'll stomp on the guy's throat.
The other thing about people at Enron is a lot of them were former nerds. You wanted to be the most popular guy on Wall Street, and you were going to do whatever you had to do.
They sought out every loophole they could in order to profit.
The rules weren't quite clear. They could bury debt, they could bury losses.
An industry that was very reliable for 100 years was all of a sudden turned into a casino.
Those guys could just yank the California economy on its leash whenever they wanted to, and they did it, and they did it, and they did it.
He just steals money from California to the tune of $1 million or $2 a day.
This is insane.
Could I predict phony energy crisis as a result of deregulation? Yes. Could I predict that Arnold Schwarzenegger would be a governor as a result of deregulation?
Oh, I didn't expect that.
I kind of want to watch this.
Does Enron make its money?
Accounting doesn't get that creative.
I would like to know if
a lot of them could have just gone to therapy.
Evidence came out of Enron.
Everyone was on the bandwagon, and it can happen again.
We are the good guys. We were on the side of angels.
Yeah, I think I do need to watch that. So March 13th, 2007, Arthur Andersen will pay $72.5 million to investors who sued the firm for its involvement in the Enron scandal. June 19th, 2007, Ken Rice is sentenced to 27 months, forfeits $15 million. August 6th, as lead plaintiff in the class action against Enron, the University of California obtains more than $7.2 billion from the executives, accountants, and financial institutions that organized the fraud, which wiped out thousands of jobs, more than $60 billion in market value, and more than $2 billion in pension plans. Yikes. Big lawsuit. Yikes. They made so much money. Anyway, September 19th, 2008. At first I thought that was saying that California got $7.2 billion. They're saying the executives are the ones that stole the $7.2 billion, I think. Anyway, September 19th, 2008, Enron shareholders and investments will split about $7 billion from the financial institutions accused from participating in fraud that caused the once mighty energy company to collapse. The distribution plan was a part of a $4 billion lawsuit against Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, and Citigroup, and others. Why are they involved now? There's so many people involved, and everyone's doing fraud. Still affected years later. This is people from Reddit. My inheritance was Enron. That was all my grandpa had. Of course, he never sold them, and it became totally worthless. I still have the paper certificates for most of them. I used to hang 600 share certificate on my wall as a reminder to diversify investing. My husband and I are former Enron employees. The only effect it has now is reminding us of how we met there 23 years ago. I'm an ex-Enron employee. I was around my mid-20s and only worked there about 9 months. It hasn't affected me, but I didn't have any other stock. I just got screwed out of my severance package, but it was really not anything to worry about. My last day, though, the day they asked us to leave, was crazy. My time references could be off, but around 9 a.m., the whole network shut down. I had changes I had made in the source code I was part of, and I couldn't check code changes at all. No more email, nothing. A bit after that, we were called to one side of the building on our floor. A higher up explained that we were being sent home if we had on-call pagers to take them, if we had laptops to support infrastructure, take them home, also take all personal things home, and we got a call in the next 2 days. If we got a call in the next 2 days, we still had a job. There were no boxes to pack things, so we all just walked out. Security guards were everywhere. People had fancy, expensive chairs full of their belongings, rolling them out. Metro buses had not arrived yet for all the employees that rode the bus, so a lot of people standing around not sure how to get home. I drove, so I took 3 of my team members to the park and ride where they parked at. We were all told Metro had buses in the way, so many people upset, crying, and so much disbelief. Apparently there's an Enron the Musical.
And finally, run and attempted to go where theater rarely ventures.
Electricity won't be deregulated. Canada's not going to get that kid into the White House. We will.
Into the dark heart of
This
high
is hilarious.
finance and corporate corruption. 2001 collapse
What is
of
this?
Houston-based energy-turned-trading giant
What is this?
Enron.
Doesn't matter if it's a bad deal. Just get the deal done.
The more I read about that, the more I thought, well, why don't I fully understand this?
But I love theater kids. Love, love, love theater kids. I think this is our last thing. Yes.
It really seems like yesterday. It does not seem
I don't know
like
what this is, but that woman's nailing it.
But in fact, it was 20 years ago. And it's amazing how much Enron is still the byword for mega corporate scandal.
20 years ago today, I have a photographer I work with almost daily.
Let's go ahead and get to the game. We've heard from Sharon a lot this week, and it's already 9:15. We will be here next week talking about Tori Spelling. If you do not know who Tori Spelling is, she is a celebrity. She's a little insane. She has a lot of kids. She has a lot of animals. She moves around a lot. She has some bad financial habits. A lot of drama. Lots and lots of lore about Tori Spelling. I did not know a ton about her either. I listened to Celebrity Memoir Book Club talk about her, and that's how I learned and picked her for the stream. Let's go ahead and play our freaking game. Shout out to those of you that stuck around the whole time. Tonight was a longer night. Which game do we want to play? Let's do Carnival because these guys are clowns and this is the circus. So be quick. Go ahead and join the game. I'll put the link in the chat and the directions are up there. If you don't want your name to come up on screen, don't put your name. Or you can put something funny. I'll give everybody a couple minutes to join and go ahead and pick their little characters and all of that stuff. We really were here for a while tonight. I have so many text messages. What's going on? I hate when people send me emails. It's so offensive. Also, we gotta say, all 3 whistleblowers were women. Sounds about right. I can hear my boyfriend playing video games. That's cute. I love when men are enjoying things together. So wholesome. They're probably like murdering people in this game. Alrighty. There's 2 people here. Where is everybody? Did my usual game players ditch us? Valid. It is like 9:30 at night, basically. I'll give it a couple more seconds. So we just went to 4. We got to 4. I know there's a little bit of delay. I hate when my Instagram shows me something from like 4 days ago. Like, what is that? There we go. Now there's 12 of you. Nice. I was about to start counting down like I do in my class whenever they're being slow at something, like joining a game, not being slow, like they don't know things. I'm talking about like literally opening a link and they're doing it slowly. I always go, I'm giving you 10, 9, and then I just count down. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit start because there's already 20 of you there. If you have not joined, it will let you join late. What industry was Enron primarily involved in? I don't know this. I mean, like, I didn't make these questions, is what I'm saying. I do know this question. What year did Enron file for bankruptcy? This is a hard one. What was the primary cause of Enron's downfall? If anyone puts natural disaster, I'm going to check on you for a mental evaluation. How much was Enron's stock worth at its peak? About 100. I think the highest number I saw was 90, but close enough. What major energy market did they heavily manipulate, leading to power shortages? California. Y'all are being quick tonight. I appreciate it. I don't know if you can tell, I got tired. Like, maybe 10 minutes ago, I was like, yeah, I'm over it. How long did the Enron trial last? This is a hard one. I don't know the answer to this. Which trial? I'm assuming she means all of them. What's the answer here? Is it 3 years? I feel like 3 years is right. I think she might have been talking about one specific one, because I feel like it was a long time for everyone's individual trials. I don't know about that. How many years was Jeff Skilling sentenced to prison? Lots of year questions. All right. She's making us work for it. Making us memorize those numbers. $24. He's getting out, no? What law was passed in response to the Enron scandal? The Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Two more. Not vegan blueberry tofu pie at the front. I love it. What was the estimated loss to Enron shareholders? The shareholders, you guys. Think of the real victims. The shareholders. I liked tonight. I kind of liked learning something new and just being goofy with y'all. Even though it took us a long time, it was worth the goofing. Last question. What was Enron's slogan before the scandal? Remember it was in a bunch of the commercials that we found to be creepy? Ask why. Why? Ironic for someone doing accounting fraud. Maybe y'all should have asked why a little more often. A hostile Walmart takeover in first place. Then we have Brianna Myers clapping for Bernie. Enron is an MLM. Aiden, fucked up fast how. Blueberry tofu pie. Vegan blueberry tofu pie. The Cross. Sheets parking lot. Skilling, more like shilling. Florida. 401k who. GameStop parking lot. Enron pager. Rye. Enron Schmemron. Dana Fulton. Account my ass. And G Ziz. Nice job, Lemur Banana in first place. Thank you so much for being here. I'll stick around for a couple seconds so you can post your memes if they work. Memes, feelings, lore, anything that we missed. I'll stick around for a few moments because I know a lot of y'all made some great memes about the pies and I want to see them. But thank you so much for being here. Sorry I was not that focused and kept talking shit and it took us a long time to get through it tonight. But like I always say, this is one of the best parts of my week. I love being able to just like shoot the shit with adults and not have to think about what I'm saying and like talk shit about all these people and be super biased and opinionated. Francine getting ready to throw a tofu cream pie at the temporary Enron CEO. Me behaving so cutesy when I'm exempt from the company's code of ethics. Me every time Mr. Redacted reads my comment to the class. Me when Enron. Really was a wild ride. It was honestly crazier than I thought. But thank you so much for being here. I will see you next week for Tori Spelling. Tori Spelling's insane. She has a pet pig. It shits in her house. When her water broke, she was standing on top of one of her children, so her water broke onto them. She has lost money on tons of property. She fell on a grill at Benihana and got third-degree burns all over her arm. Her parents are super rich, but they really didn't even help her financially. It's just a whole crazy time, so I will see you here next week.